Are you tired of hearing about how much Thundercats Roar is probably gonna suck? I was starting to get that way, and but what's funny is that when you look on YouTube, there seems to be a growing cottage industry of just hating on Thundercats Roar. I don't know how much legs that's gonna have. I mean, the show doesn't come out till 2019, but there is a possibility that people could be hating on this well up until the day it comes out, kind of like Ghostbusters when it came out. It's funny because there's a lot of different angles to take on it. I mean, it just seems like such an obviously bad idea. The only people who know about Thundercats are between the ages of 25 and 45, which is to say that those are the people that are least likely to watch a show like Thundercats Roar, done in that, sort of childish, cartoony animated style. You're not really aiming it at them. You're not really aiming it for them to have their kids watch it because they're gonna look at it and they're just gonna say that's dumb, and they're not gonna encourage their kids to watch that at all. So just on like a technical level, it's just like why all of the cartoons you could have rebooted and all of the ways that you could reboot them. Why did you decide to reinvent Thundercats in the Teen Titans Go style? I mean, Teen Titans Go gets enough hate. Why did you think a Thundercats reboot would even come close to it? But then when you get just past the why, you get other questions. The most important one, and it's the one that I want to answer in this video, is why does it even matter? Why was there such an intense, visceral reaction to them rebooting a 30-plus-year-old cartoon? And there's a lot of reasons. A lot of it, like I said, is just that initial gut punch level emotional reaction of just, why are they doing this? When I first initially saw the Thundercats Roar promotional image, at first I thought it was a joke. I thought it was some kind of Tumblr thing that people had mistaken for the real thing. Then I saw the announcement video, and then I just started laughing at it. I just started laughing at the reaction to it. I thought it was really funny, and one of the things I thought was really funny about the reaction was that, for the most part, the only people that were defending the Thundercats Roar reboot were people that were either in animation or in the media. That was really interesting to me. And then I had a conversation in real life with somebody who didn't see a problem with the Thundercats reboot. And this person, it was somebody I'd grown up with, somebody that I'm pretty sure I watched the original show with, at least at some point. And she was like, yeah, I don't see why so many people are getting angry about it. And that conversation got probably a little bit more heated than it should have. But it did open my eyes about some things. And the biggest one is, why should I even care? But, what exactly does that mean? And I think that's what I want to try to answer to this question, get to what I think is the heart of this really stupid Thundercats thing. And this video may end up getting watched by a lot of people that haven't followed too closely some of the things that have happened with Marvel. It's an outside chance, but it's possible. And I think that the two are connected. So our problem in Marvel Comics especially, because they were much more guilty of this, it's not that they had all these new characters like the new Miss Marvel, the new female Iron Man, whose name is Ironheart, the new Hulk, who's actually been around for a while, but he got way more annoying in the past couple of years. It's not really that these characters exist, it's that they're written really badly and in this really insulting way, and yet if you make fun of it, or if you draw attention to how badly they're written, you get tarred with some kind of negative label. You look at the original Thundercats, and it's very much a show for boys. It's very much a show it's about, these big, muscular heroes using swords and tanks and nunchucks to fight off monsters. And then you look at Thundercats Roar, and it's clearly for little kids, and it has these very... It's not for girls, but it still has this very effeminate sensibility that it just completely tones down all of the masculinity of it. And it's like, how could somebody think that was a good idea? Like, what are the thought processes of somebody who thinks that's a good idea, and then you have legions of network executives and producers and people that work in Cartoon Network and people that work in these animation houses? How can they all approve this idea or encourage it? The only way that you can think that that's a good idea is if you just fundamentally do not understand the core concept, if you don't understand what a heroic story is if you're into kids. And when you look at something like Thundercats Roar, it's just gonna be the same ADD afflicted, dumb humor, dumb silliness that Teen Titans Go and the Powerpuff Girls reboot and the other shows that Cartoon Network has done that were all done in the same style. Some of them are done better than others. I don't watch any of them, but I've heard Gumball is okay. People that like Steven Universe really like Steven Universe. Adventure Time is okay. Like a lot of these shows that are done in the style that were made to be done in that style, they actually do okay. But you look at something like Thundercats, and on the one hand, you can look at Thundercats as just a really silly idea. It's a bunch of cat people from outer space that fight an ancient mummy. And that does sound like kind of a silly concept, but the people that originally made it, the original creators of it, they took it serious. I compared it to what they've done with Marvel, because with Marvel, in a lot of ways, Patient Zero at Marvel was this book called Mockingbird, which if you don't remember that, they took this... Mockingbird is she's always been like a C-list character. She was Hawkeye's girlfriend and wife, and then they divorced. So they hired this writer, Chelsea Kane, who her only interest in comics was that she was friends with one of their big-time writers, Brian Michael Bendis, and Brian Michael Bendis suggested, hey, why don't we hire her to do this comic? And I don't know if she picked Mockingbird or if they gave her Mockingbird, but in any case, the only thing that the writer apparently knew about Mockingbird was that she was A, woman, and B, somewhere on the Marvel Wiki, there must have been a part where it mentions that she has a bachelor's in, like, biological science or something. Some kind of science-related field. So the writer latched onto those two things. Mockingbird's a woman, and Mockingbird has something vaguely related to do with science. She doesn't, really. Like, even if she does have a college degree in that, that's not what her character really is. But I think that was the one where a lot of hardcore Marvel readers really started to realize that something was wrong. And if you read news articles about that, you'll get this thing that Chelsea Kane was harassed out of the industry. But it was that she was met with heavy criticism and resistance because she clearly didn't understand. Like, she didn't understand superhero comics. She didn't understand the medium of comics. She didn't understand the character that she'd been asked to write. And yet, they still brought her in, and they still use that version of Mockingbird to this day. Even though people roundly rejected it when it happened, they still keep using it. So, once again, you keep hiring these people that don't like or care or understand the thing that they want to reboot. It's like the guy who runs Thundercats Roar, if you look at him, he fits a lot of stereotypes about a certain kind of progressive male. That's all I'm going to say about that. But it's like all he saw about Thundercats was just that it was a silly notion. And I also think back to, outside of comics, I think back to the Ghostbusters reboot. If you watch the original Ghostbusters, they took the stuff really seriously. And a lot of that is just because Dan Aykroyd actually believes in a lot of that stuff. He actually, follows all this parapsychology stuff. And so in the movie, for the most part, when a ghost shows up, it's something to take seriously. It's the interaction between the four main characters that was the selling point for it. So then they reboot it, and it's met with a lot of hate, and I think it's for a lot of the same reason. For one thing, right, they thought that the concept itself of, busting ghosts, that was just a silly notion, and the interaction between the four main characters, it just was not the same. There wasn't that level of camaraderie that there was in the original one. Not only that, there's something like vaguely insulting in the new Ghostbusters, because in the new Ghostbusters, almost all the male characters are goofs. But in the original Ghostbusters, the male characters were goofs, and the female characters, Annie Potts and Sigourney Weaver, they were, mature and put together and knew what they were doing, and it was the guys that were just bumbling around. So there wasn't, that wasn't insulting. And, there's nothing, problematic about the original Ghostbusters unless you're just warped by this sort of weird ideology. And it's the same with Thundercats. The original Thundercats had progressive elements to it. I mean, you look at Panthro. Panthro is obviously supposed to be black. His skin is darker. Panthers are obviously black in real life. He's voiced by a black voice actor. And on the one hand, he's the big, tough, strong guy, but he's also their tech expert. He invents a lot of the stuff that is part and parcel of the show. My recollection is that he built that Thunder Tank thing from scratch. Likewise, Chitara. You figure that the female character, the sole female character, that A, she's going to be one of the younger characters, and B, that she's going to be the love interest or the main character. But to my recollection, neither of those things happen. If she wasn't literally the oldest, then she certainly acted the most mature. And I don't remember her and Lionel ever getting together. Now, I didn't see every episode, but I don't remember her and Lionel ever getting together. And if they did, it was towards the end of the show. It's not like it was something they were building up to. Plus, what are Chitara's powers? Is it something like Deanna Troi had? You know, empathic telepathy? Did she have some weird, like, ability to see the future or some weird magic power? No, she had the ability to run really fast. This very physical, very, you know, strength-based power that normally you'd only see a male character have. So you can't even say that they're rebooting something that's problematic into something that's no longer problematic, because the original Thundercats, I'm not saying it was some kind of, you know, progressive paragon or anything, but there were elements to it that I think that even a modern-day SJW could respect. But no, all the guy who's rebooting it sees is, oh, it's cat people from outer space fighting an alien. Ha. Just like a lot of these Marvel writers that they've hired. So many of these writers, they just see superheroes as goofballs. So you have so many characters like Riri Williams, like Kamala Khan, like the new Squirrel Girl, not the old Squirrel Girl, but the new Squirrel Girl. They don't have that normal heroic arc that the original characters had that endeared you to them. Instead, their only problem that they really have to face is that people don't like them enough. But they don't, you know, villains, you have somebody like Elektra. I can't remember who wrote the stupid Elektra series, but Elektra, one of the most dangerous people in the Marvel Universe, and she's getting knocked around a merry-go-round by Arcade. Are you kidding me? You've got female Thor who can use the hammer better than the Thor that's been using it for like 10,000 years. You've got Riri Williams who stole the technology for her suit and causes millions of dollars in property damage and suffers no consequences for it. You've got all these people that clearly don't like or care about superhero comics, except that, you know, this sort of MCU level like humor, and they don't realize that even the humor in the MCU is grounded in this conflict and problems that the characters have. And it just seems like that this culture is spreading. I mentioned the Ghostbusters reboot that everybody hated and flopped when it came out. Like I said, before the Thundercats, there was the Powerpuff Girls reboot that flopped. Teen Titans Go keeps going, but everybody hates it, except for like young kids and the parents that use it as a babysitter, basically. When you compare the Teen Titans Go to the original Teen Titans, it's no contest. You've got all of modern day Marvel, and now they're doing it to Thundercats, which had, like Ghostbusters, it had a lot of nostalgic value. It had a lot of goodwill towards it. I guess now there's a backlash to the backlash, which is people saying that even if they don't like the new Thundercats reboot, that the backlash to it is a little over the top. And in some cases it was. Like when it first came out, when that video came out, I was pretty pissed off. And then I just started laughing at it. It's like, who cares? But it does matter, because if they keep doing this to these well-established properties that have a lot of nostalgia to them. And part of that is just to make... A lot of that is just because it's easy. You figure you're going to make money off of it. But a lot of it, too, is that so many of the creative types and so many of the business executive types that are responsible for showing this stuff on television and in comics and in movies, they just kind of don't care about their cultural inheritance, so they're just going to milk it for all the money that it's worth. Like, if they just made a new show with the same money and cast as the Thundercats Roar cartoon, I don't think anybody would have cared. But you're trying to use the nostalgic goodwill towards a property, and you completely ruined it. If kids want to watch a show like that, there's like 15 other shows right now that Cartoon Network is doing that are in that exact same style. So it's really kind of amazing that that they could screw this up this badly. But it is, I think, in a small but noticeable way, it is another sign of cultural decay. That it's not just that we're not, taking care of the things that are hundreds of years old, like, statues and stuff like that. It's that we're not taking care of stuff that's still within living memory. People still really like the Thundercats, the original one. And I think if anything good comes out of all of this, it's that people are gonna realize, people are gonna watch the show more, which I'm sure Rankin Bass is gonna love that. You'd figure that after the backlash to Ghostbusters, and after the backlash to SJW Marvel, and after the backlash to the Powerpuff Girls reboot, and after the backlash to the ongoing backlash against the general direction of Cartoon Network in general, which is evidenced by stuff like Teen Titans Go, you'd figure that these large media companies would learn, but they're not yet. And Star Wars 2, another obvious one. We'll see how Solo does this weekend, but something tells me it's not going to do well, and that's not going to bode well for Episode 9. And yeah, it's pretty obvious that it's all the same forces at work, and some people like to say that, that these forces are on the wane. I'm more skeptical of that, but we'll see. So yeah, I'm just going to end this here. Yeah, basically these media companies, they need to get a different kind of creative personality involved with this stuff. Apparently the animation job and community is just as toxic, if not more toxic, than the current comics community is. So that's hard to believe, but apparently it's true. But yeah, tell me what you think about Thundercats Roar. Tell me what you think about rebooting things in general. Tell me what you think about the general direction that our culture is heading in. In any case, this is Unranked Chevron signing off.